Welcome to Engineered Conversations. Today we have our first official guest, Dr. Yufei Huang. Welcome. And so I know you were asking previously what we kind of do here, and it's not a very structured format. We just want to talk to you, get to know what you do here in the department, maybe what you're researching, future plans, things like that. So we also have Con with us, our program coordinator from last time. So
hello.
So, Dr. Huang, we'll start with you.
All right.
How long have you been with the department here?
So, I'm one of the, if you consider the older generation of the department. I joined the department in 2002. So I've been with the department for almost 16 years.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know whether there are many faculty members in the department who stayed in this department longer than I do, maybe 2 or 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
you're a veteran.
You are a veteran.
I am. So, yeah, but, I'm really excited to be with this department. I see the growth of the department, experience really, the change, the tremendous change that this department at the university really experienced. So, yeah, I'm happy to be part of.
Good. Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you.
Yeah, we were saying last time how Con and I are fairly new to the department still, and it's great being here. It's really nice, really cool seeing the changes that have happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so what is it that you specialize in?
So, what I do or what my lab is doing is we call it. We have a fancy name now. We call it intelligent biology, but it's also known as computation biology. So, in a nutshell, we are basically applying machine learning tools to look at biological data, to really make sense of the biological data, to be able to really figure out exactly what is the underlying biological processes, what are the so essentially how do we really explain this, whatever the biological phenomena that we see, right? So we look at this biological systems from two aspects. One, we look at a biological system from the molecular level, or particularly we look at the genomes, look at the DNA, RNA, the regulations of DNA, RNA. So DNA essentially is what we call, it's a place where we store genetic information, right? So it's whatever that information that's stored in DNA that eventually dictates the type of protein that's being produced, okay? So, and we not only looking at DNA, looking at how this genetic information is really being constructed or come by. We particularly are interested in the process of going from genetic information to the protein. So actually, it turns out this process it's a very complicated process, highly regulated. It involves tons of different proteins, enzymes. So RNA and not in a isolated fashion. They're really all work in sync together in a very synchronized version, and there's a lot of regulation going on. So we to really understand such a complicated interactions or regulations, one at the such larger scale. Now we really look at entire these regulations at the so-called global scale. We look at in the entire cells how these thousands of these genes or proteins really regulate each other. So to be able to do this, we have to first of all to be able to collect tons of data, right? That measure the outcome of these regulations. But secondly, to use very sophisticated machine learning tools and algorithms to be able to figure out, so what these underlying interactions are. So that's very much what I do, but this is only one aspect that my lab is working on. So another aspect is well, let me back up one step. So let me still talk a little bit about that genomic level. So we that regulation that we figure out is really we use this as a means to understand the biological processes. For example, why cell die, right?
Okay.
So we want to know that so which in this. So there's a very catchy name that we use. We call regulatory networks. In the networks of this regulation between proteins, genes, and RNAs. So which subset of this regulation play the most important role, right? Regulating, for example, the cell cycles, right? Things like this. So so this is one goal that we one reason why we study this type of interaction. Another goal is really, we try to see whether we can translate this information, this knowledge that we learned, okay, to be able to help either select better drugs for example, for cure different diseases. Particularly, we're interested in cancer, right?
Oh yeah.
So selecting drugs, providing prognostic or diagnostic markers, so that if you see certain regulations being irregular under certain contexts, we can have a high confidence to say that it's likely this patient would develop cancer at what stage and so on and so forth, right? So that's another goal of the research. So that's how we look at the biological system from the genomic aspect. So. And we also take a different aspect of looking at the genomic system. This is where we are actually looking at the brain. Okay, so this is where we use EEG. So EEG is it's a short name for electroencephalograph. Okay, so EEG essentially it's a device that record electric activities as a result of a neuron firing.
Right.
So it's a non-invasive device in the sense that you don't have to open up your scalp and insert an electrode there. Yeah. So we put electrodes on your scalp, right? So basically, attached to your hair, to your scalp, and then so we look at these electric signals. Okay, generated by brain activity, and then try to make a sense of it. And very much we're interested in how we can correlate these signals with our cognitive behaviors, including fatigue, attention, focus level, different type of decision making, and so on and so forth. So it's actually a very complicated problem. It's a very, very complicated problem. It's because of many reasons, but just for EEG signal itself, it's a very noisy signal. Okay. So being able to really extract these neuron activity associated signal from these noisy recordings, it's very, very challenging. And secondly, we have to rely on not only just one sensor, we have to rely on a large collection of sensors being really put on many different places of the scalp. So the end result is that we have this recording, multi-dimensional recordings. So for example, in many of our project, we use 64 sensors. We put 64 these sensors on your scalp. So the data that we have, we call 64 dimensions. Okay. So 64 dimensions of we call time series data, basically 64 dimensions of these type of signals, and then being able to understand from such a high dimensional data which parts, which activity is associated with what type of a behavior, it's extremely challenging. So
Sure.
That requires very advanced machine learning approaches.
So the different parts, the different parts of the brain, do you find that you get different signals then? Is it pretty uniform throughout, or do you?
No, actually, no. It's very different.
Right.
So what we know is that a different part of the brain actually is responsible for different type of behaviors. So, so for example, if we consider the so-called prefrontal lobe, so very much so in front of your head, right? So this is if you're studying concentration, focus, even relaxation, this is where you want to get the signals, right?
Okay.
So if you're studying some of the like visual response, and then you want to focus on the so-called occipital area, that's basically in the back of your head.
Oh.
So this is where you want to get your data from. So yeah, so the short answer is no. Different parts of the brain actually have different functions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Con, were you gonna ask something? I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was actually asking, like, interested in when you're talking about the brain and the EEG machine. So is it kind of like you're making like a neural network map of the brain in certain instances?
Yeah. So you can consider it like that. So we can take two approaches. So like I said, our end results, our end goal is to really being able to really predict, given some EEG recordings, to being able to predict what is the corresponding cognitive activity behaviors, right? So we can take two approaches here. So one is that we can take a more engineering approach. So where your goal is to build a model that can really perform this type of prediction. Having EEG as the input to the model, and then this cognitive behavior is the output of the model. So as long as you can build a model that can very accurately predict the behavior from EEG, and then we call this success, right? Okay. But this type of approach doesn't really entail any underlying neurological processes. Exactly why, for example, why this part of activity is high when you are focused, and so forth, right? So to really answer this type of question, we have to really taking a more of a neuroscience or cognitive science approach. So this requires, actually, I'm not trained as a neuroscientist. I don't have that part of expertise. So this really relies on collaborations. So
are you working with any neuroscientists?
Yes. Actually, we have very close collaborations with, for example, at UTSA with Dr. Edward Gollop from in the psychology department. Oh. So he provides a lot of neuroscience aspect of interpretation, knowledge, insights to the research.
Right. I know you mentioned potential findings of cancer.
Right.
Are there any other kind of like insights into other motor neuron diseases like ALS or Alzheimer's or anything like that?
Right. So for the cancer study that we perform, it's actually we're now really looking at brain cancer. So we are more focused on breast cancer.
Oh, okay.
So we look at the genomic makeups of breast cancer. Okay. So one particular project that we're working on now is it's actually pretty biology now. So we're looking at a type of a modification to RNA, particular to mRNA, messenger RNA. So messenger RNA, in short, is a long chain of nucleotides, right? So in human we have 4 types of nucleotides. Normally we use the short name ATCG, right? Everybody studied this in biology. But
Justin.
Yeah, in RNA we have instead of a thymine we have we have U instead of a T. We use
okay.
U. So, but anyway, you have 4 nucleotides. So, but if it's very interesting actually in biology. These nucleotides can experience chemical changes, modifications. Okay, so that the chemical structure actually is being modified. Okay, so as you can imagine, if the chemical structure is modified, the corresponding functions is likely to be modified. So right now, what we are studying is, we actually, we're one of the early groups really study the modifications in mRNA, messenger RNA. So we see a widespread modification in mRNA. So we're actually now studying this type of modification in the context of breast cancer. So, and we also see changes of modification when we compare a normal cell versus a breast cancer cell. We see changes of modification. So that's an indication that modification plays some role in regulating cancer, particularly breast cancer. So we are literally want to understand exactly, the specific type of regulations that these type of modification really plays in regulating breast cancer. So yeah, that's one cancer-related project that we're working on. Yeah,
I didn't know. It's funny because I didn't know, being just working in the electrical engineering department, that it was so closely tied with biology and neuroscience, and I guess even a little bit of chemistry, maybe, or not so much.
Well, definitely, it's
just kind of all
the more knowledge
right
on the chemistry, biochemistry, the better, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so this is really it's just a hallmark of the current research. It's
right,
vastly cross-disciplinary. Okay, so it's almost right now it's almost impossible for somebody who has a very specific expertise to take on the advanced research, state-of-the-art research. It's always a collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know one of the hot topics going into the future is AI.
Right.
So is the neuroscience playing into that as well?
Oh, definitely. So whenever we talk about intelligence, so intelligence is it's a basic outcome of a neural activity. So creativity, consciousness. So these are all outcome neural activity. So the artificial intelligence is essentially, to a large degree, to really mimic human intelligence using machine, right? So without a good understanding of how human intelligence is really come by, we can't really build a reliable artificial intelligence system. So the current artificial intelligence research, even though much of the current research is driven by machine learning area, so for past few years, okay. But for somebody who really want to advance artificial intelligence, we have to have significant input from neuroscientists, from psychologists, for example, who has that type of knowledge. Yeah. So, but electrical engineering, computer science, for sure will play a significant role in this artificial intelligence research.
Sure.
Because there, as you can see, there's a significant engineering aspect of research, right? So,
So do you think we'll see maybe in our lifetimes or in our children's lifetimes a thinking machine, like a free thinking machine, or do you think that's science fiction still at this point?
Wow. So now, just based on the whatever being generated for the past few years in this front, artificial intelligence, you almost think anything is possible.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So it's really the pace of the advancement in artificial intelligence in the past few years is really mind-boggling.
Really.
So the answer to the question whether we can potentially see in our lifetime some free thinking machine, okay, I would say yes, but it really depends on how you define, what degree, to what extent you want a machine to be free thinking, but it just so having this ability to think freely, I think we start to see that. We start to already see.
So like making its own decisions based on maybe cause and effect or things like that.
So that's very much possible now. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah, but what's really can we say we are already very much approached human intelligence? I would say no. We are nowhere near that.
Okay.
So I would say in terms of intelligence, there are three hallmarks of human intelligence. One is the ability to learn, right? So and the second is ability to understand. Okay. The third stage is really the ability to create. Okay. So the artificial intelligence is very much at this first stage, being able to learn. So now what we see is the artificial intelligent machines is very, very good at learning. Okay, so some of the examples are, now speech recognition system, right? So your Siri or Google Home.
Yeah.
What is this? Amazon.
Oh, the Echo. Alexa.
Yeah, Alexa. Right. So they're pretty good, right? They understand whatever you say very, very well. So it's a very good example of machine learning. So the way how you construct such a powerful, speech recognition system is by provide the machine with lots of these speeches and the ground truths. So for example, so the way how literally we call train the machine is I give the machine this audio. That's what we just talked about. And then I jot down exactly what I say. I present it also to the machine. So machine hear the sound and also know what that sound is. Right, so that's how we let the machine learn. And so now the machine is really, really good. Actually, I would say, rather than say machine, I would say this algorithm, this model that enable the machine to be this powerful. It's deep learning models. As you probably heard this name.
Right.
So we train the deep learning model with tons of these audio recordings and the scripts of what these audios are. And that's how this deep learning model becomes so powerful. We provide millions of these examples. So that's a very good example of how powerful a machine is now in learning. But machine is still, I would say, very dumb in understanding. Okay.
Right.
So one example would be, so another area that we see this tremendous advancement in machine learning, deep learning in particular, is image recognition. So now it's very, very good for the machine to recognize. You present the machine with the image, it can pretty much tell you what is that image, what's in the image.
Wow.
It's a car, chair, table, person. Even it can tell what exactly you're doing, right? But machine doesn't understand. That's as far as what machine can do now. Okay. Even though it's very good at detecting these objects in the image, but doesn't know what does it mean, right? So one example could be let me see what would be a good example here. So for human, we look at if you see me carrying a coffee cup, right? So you probably won't. First thing come out of your mind might not be, okay, you carry a coffee cup. You're probably thinking about you're drinking coffee, right? So our understanding is very much a higher level. We understand, right? But machine now doesn't know. So all machine does is, okay, in the image, this person carry a coffee cup, but nothing beyond that. It doesn't understand this, right? So, when we look at image, we describe images as funny, all right? So we're not, we try to understand image at a more abstract level, right? We now say, okay, this image, when we look at image, there's a ball, there's a chair, this and this, that. When we look at image, we often say, okay, it's a really funny picture, or so that's not machine can do yet.
So it just sees objects like there is this in the picture, where we see something and we say, we can extrapolate that an action is being taken.
Exactly. So actually, there's one very good example. So when people try to really convey this knowledge about what machine can do now, so one example is there's a picture of let me see if I remember correctly. So it's about President Obama. So the picture of President Obama making a joke or something. He's playing with somebody, So, and when we look at a picture, we know that Obama is, making fun of something.
Right.
Yeah, but there's no way for machine to really understand the image like that.
Okay.
So that's probably what exactly that image the message that image tried to really tell everybody. But so we're not there yet. So this is what artificial intelligence is trying to really achieve at this stage. So then it comes to creativity, create new things. So this is another very complicated front that artificial intelligence has to really conquer to be able to think like a human.
Sure.
Right? So creativity is it's another very difficult. Yeah. So one of the reasons is we don't have a very good understanding exactly why human can create. What is creativity? So we don't have that understanding.
That's true. Yeah.
Very good understanding. So that's why we need to work together with neuroscientists, with psychologists, so they can provide us with some of the insight as to if we want to build a machine that can be creative. So how we can achieve that, right? So
right.
Yeah, but that's why that's more or less the state of artificial intelligence, and this is why we are not there yet.
Right.
But,
okay.
But it just
so learning is high, understanding not so much, and creativity not at all.
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting. I never put that to, I never would have thought is like Alexa and Google Home. I mean, it makes complete sense when you say it, but like, oh yeah, it's a form of artificial intelligence with just voice recognition.
It's just voice recognition.
Yeah.
If you want to, oftentimes we say things. We say same thing, probably mean different. We say same sentence, probably mean different things under different contexts. I don't think Alexa can understand that now. Okay, so that's
it's kind of like when you send a text or an email. There's no tone, there's no inflection.
Right.
So you send it, and the person reading it interprets it in a completely different way. So okay, that makes sense. We actually had a question yesterday. We were talking, and Con came in. She goes, "What is the definition of a robot?" And I'm thinking you have just the mechanical body, but then it's like, is the robot a robot, or is it the machine, mechanical, whatever, with the CPU brain? Does that make it a robot, or is the robot strictly
what you would
appendage?
Typically see when you say robot, people see head, arms, robot. Or is it something more than just the physicality, right? Is Alexa a robot?
Right. Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm not in the robotics, right?
Okay,
So I'm not sure whether whatever whatever I say really,
it's strictly opinion at this
but
point.
in my opinion, a robot. So now the boundary between robots and artificial intelligence is really, to a large degree, I wouldn't say blurred. I would say, for whoever work on robotics, you want to give robots intelligence, right? But like concepts, whether when we think of a robot, whether a robot has to have a human physique, a human structure, right? So having arms, legs, I would say probably not. So this is probably the advantage of a robot. So we don't have to really constrain the robot to taking a particular shape, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe so having this freedom can really build new machines that can be more efficient to take on particular task.
Right.
So, for example, so you see that the industrial arms, that's probably already good enough for taking on particular tasks. You don't need to build a body for that arm, right? So, yeah. So Alexa, whether it's a robot, I probably think yes.
Yeah. I was leaning towards that too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But it's complex. So you're right. The lines are getting a little bit blurred because our robots, like you said, aren't necessarily looking like humans, and we don't need to anthropomorphize them anymore. Exactly. They're a lot easier to just, do everything if you can compact it into like a little box.
Yeah. So for for most of the robotics research that's been going on at UTSA, so if you go to their lab, you don't see that human-shaped robots.
Right.
Most of them having just a car.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a robotics car, but it's already enough for the type of research they're doing. Okay. But we do have a lab in mechanical engineering, so they're studying human-shaped robot.
Oh wow.
So, but that's only one aspect of robotic research. Yeah.
Sure. I'm still fascinated by the AI
It's a fascinating topic.
It is.
It
So,
is, it
has there been a true neural net computer built up to this point in history?
Oh, so this name of neural network actually, my guess, when you ask this question, my guess is that when you talk about neural network, you really think about this neural circuits, a model that mimics this neural circuits, right? So, but the type of neural network that we talk about in machine learning is completely different.
Oh,
So
okay.
nothing has. So deep learning is a neural network. It's the state of art neural network model. It has, normally we don't draw. Even if I draw it, it has nothing. You won't think of that as a neural
Right.
circuit. It's a more sophisticated model. Okay, so the reason why it's called neural network is really because the way initially. So neural network actually. Well, when people initially build neural network, this is a mathematical function actually. They are trying to mimic how a neuron function. So they do have this concept of activation, neuron firing, and so on and so forth. But they use mathematical equations to mimic this type of activity. Yeah. So, but you can strip down. You can get rid of this, the analogy between the function and the neural circuitry or neural firing. You can just look at this as a set of equations, right?
Oh,
So,
okay.
So for machine learning, for us, it's literally a set of equations. It's nothing but a very complicated function. So you have an input, you have an output, and whatever in the middle is really, really sophisticated set of functions. So that's. But going back to, but there's also a area, a sub area of a research where they literally trying to build a machine that simulates neural firing to simulate brain.
Wow.
So this is one of the. So we now you probably heard, the Brain Initiative, the U.S. Brain Initiative. This was originated by President Obama back in 2013. Okay, so, but actually European take on this so-called Brain Initiative earlier than us. So when they first take it on, their goal is to really build a machine that mimic neural activity. Okay, so but they failed miserably. So so this is really because we don't have a complete understanding how really this neural activities are really being conducted.
Sure.
At a biological level yet. So so both are whether there are some good examples of the simulating brain. I personally I'm not really aware of any yet. Okay, there are a group of people who are working on this to really simulate. So let's say simulate if you are tired, so your brain activity, your brain, the firings are looking like this,
Right.
and then they try to exactly recapitulate this type of activity in your brain, using computers or using circuits,
Right.
things like this. Yeah.
So are you saying, because I understand what you mean by deep learning is just a really complex mathematical model, input, output. I get that. So when you say brain initiative with mimicking neural activity, are they trying to control or manipulate actual human neural activity using a machine based off of like pre-programmed neural activity maps and stuff that we mentioned earlier? Or are you talking about they want to create a computer that functions as a brain? Or is that the same thing?
Yeah, well, at the current level, it's very much using computer to mimic the brain. Okay, so you can have tons of you can simulate tons of neurons and then simulate the interaction between the neurons. Okay, but you have to know, like for example, when I'm tired, which part of the neuron now actually interact with which part of the neuron. So that knowledge actually is not there, right? You see what I mean? But eventually, so the reason we build this model is because it's very much simulation. We can simulate brain activity. Now, once you have the simulation model, you can play with it, right? You can say, okay, if I tweak this part, if I shut off the firing in this part of the brain, what's going on, what's going to happen, right? So that's one of the reasons why we build simulation models. Yeah, but once you have a computer model, you can go and build a physical model, right? So, but whether you can build something that using the material of so this biological material to really build a biological brain, I don't know. I don't think it's.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Even if you were to get the algorithms correct, where it was functioning as a human brain, and then to make a physical model, would you be able to use plastics and different types of materials, or would it need to be biological in nature to allow for the currents to flow like they do? So I don't know.
Well, I would say it really depends on what you want, right? So what well, even if we can build a biological brain, so the question is, what do we want to do with this, right? So if your goal is just to simulate the brain behavior, probably we don't need to build a biological brain, right? Or well, if your goal is to build some artificial human that really also has to take this form of a real human, then maybe you want to build. So, or another thing is, well, you want to cure disease. For somebody who has brain damage, you want to reconstruct that part. Maybe this is where you want to build a, using the real materials, so human cells and stuff like that. Right. So that's that's where you probably want to build the real.
Okay.
Brain.
So no Westworld just yet.
Yeah.
So as far as technology goes, things that are being created now that are you're using currently in your lab, or that you would like to see down the road, do you have any dream piece of technology that you would love to have or that hasn't been created yet that you think would be beneficial?
Yeah. So one of the things that that we're working on right now in the lab is we really want to figure out by just looking at your brain activity, what exactly you're doing. Okay, so for example, one of the things that my student working on is that by looking at the EEG recordings, we want to know what exactly you're looking at. Okay, so what exactly you're seeing rather than looking at. So whether you see, for us, when I look at the screen, I don't necessarily capture every detail of the screen, so I focus on some parts.
Right.
So our goal is to really see whether, well, that's probably the part that stimulate my brain activity. So our goal is that if I capture this type of brain activity, can I tell which part of the image that you're looking at, you're focused on? So this is just one example, but in a more general sense, what we want is really by looking at your brain activity to be able to tell whether you're first of all to understand your emotion, and secondly to understand what exactly you're seeing, right, and what you are thinking. Okay, I'm not sure whether we'll be able to do this with EEG alone,
right?
So basically, we want to have a complete understanding of human states by looking at not only EEG but other type of signals, physiological signals.
So when you say to see what you're thinking, are you talking like reading your mind? I know not like like a psychic, but to see the patterns and be like, you're thinking about eating a hamburger, or you're thinking about going swimming, things like that, or is it more of a state of
you're hungry?
Yeah, things like that.
I would say both. We want
really?
To understand. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but like I said, that's really a dream, right?
Sure.
I'm not sure whether we'll be able to with the current technology yet.
Right.
But we can achieve at some levels, right? So just the other day, because my son played tennis, and so oftentimes you want to record the scores for a match he plays. But I'm not sure whether you watch for me, watching my son playing a match is really it's a very stressful experience.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
So and it's very concentrated, focused, and stressful. So oftentimes you don't have you forget about recording the scores. You're too focused on the match. Okay, and then by the end of the match, you only record a few scores, so that doesn't do any help. But if you can somehow capture your thoughts whenever you think about, so we keep on thinking about the scores, right? Mm-hmm. So if I have that thoughts of the score, and then we can directly detect that thoughts and translate into the score and record it for me.
Wow.
So that's something I was thinking. Last week I thought, if we have this machine, that would be great.
Yeah.
I can put it on and then watch my son play, and by the end I have all the scores, right? So so just things like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier about how brainwaves, like when you're sad or when you're happy, I know when you're excited, they show different things. So the machine could, before it could read thoughts per se, it could be definitely more empathic. You could say, oh, this person's sad right now. Or just by not even seeing their outward appearance, just by seeing their brainwaves, like, oh, they're happy or they're scared or something like that. So that would be something that would be probably more doable right now or very soon.
Very soon, yes. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy, but that's cool. So, and then I would imagine probably sooner rather than later, it will become, because technology always starts off gigantic and huge and then shrinks down. So, I mean, at some point, something like a phone could even register your mood or your feelings. Or something.
Yeah, it's happening. So now, because of this power of image recognition, now there are tools and softwares that predicts your emotion just by taking a picture of you. Yeah, so there are tools like this, but it's not. Oftentimes we hide our emotion, right? So
sure.
So that picture doesn't really, present the correct emotion that we have. So that's why we want to look at your brain. So that's probably a more, accurate representation of emotion.
Okay.
But we are, you start to seeing tools and softwares and machine learning models like this that predicts emotion using other type of data.
So do you think, and I apologize for kind of going more sci-fi in this, but predictive analytics based on brain patterns, do you see it potentially being used to eventually stop crime, or not crime, but stop criminal actions, stop
Before it happens, like Minority Report?
Like Minority Report. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, do you think if everybody, let's just say how right now FBI fingerprints people that go are brought in for felonies or whatnot, or not just FBI, but any law enforcement, you take fingerprints. So would there be brain scans, do you think, of everybody, and then therefore they could kind of monitor, like, this person, they're always on a heightened state of aggravation, or this person's always in a state of depression? Could it limit suicide? Could it stop, things like that? I don't know. I mean, could it benefit mankind in a positive way, or would that be taking away free will, free action? I know, and I'm getting way out there, so I apologize.
Yeah. So, short answer is yes. Okay. Are we there yet? No, not yet.
Right.
But that's a very active area of research. Very, very active. Okay. So, government actually is very much interested in that. That's so they're
Not surprising.
Yeah.
Right. Do we need to start wearing tinfoil hats?
So you bring up a very good issue, which is a ethic. Okay. So ethic actually is another very active area of research in artificial intelligence. So what is the limit of artificial intelligence? Okay. So are there any boundaries that artificial intelligence cannot really cross, right? And so this AI, how can we provide AI with moral, with ethics? So for example, so this is very interesting, this is a philosophical example issue, right? So with autonomous cars, so we it's happening now, right? So we have cars that drive just by itself.
Sure.
So there are situations that car will run into, very realistic situations. For example, in intersections. Okay, so suddenly, there's one pedestrian appear in front of a car, right? So naturally, you want a car to steer away, right, to avoid the pedestrian. But what if you design the car to steer to the left, and suddenly there are 4 people on the left? So what do you do?
It's like that age-old question about the train and the 2 tracks and
Exactly.
where
So
that train goes and how you direct
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Whether you push that guy off the bridge to stop the train. So that's another type of asking question, right? So what do you do? So there's actually no good answer there.
Right.
But that's a very realistic scenario. So right.
Sure.
So we have to somehow equip the AI with some type of action, so that I don't know. So this is because there's no correct answer, right? But
Right.
something that so that the end result is either depends on how you define it. Like I said, there's no correct answer. So, but at least have some minimum damage. So where's the line boundary? Whereas in those situations like what I described here, so what is the correct action, right? So these are the things that many scientists are looking at now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, because you look at you put it on paper and it's black and white, right, wrong, but then you put it into a real world situation and there's lots of in between, lots of gray.
lots,
Yeah, because
So-
when you dwindle it down in that situation, you're essentially putting a numerical value to a human life. And which situation would you prefer?
Yeah.
And that's difficult. That's difficult for a real person to answer, let alone a machine.
I don't think we have even for real person. It's a very tough
Sure.
question, philosophical
Yeah.
question, right? So it's it's about utility, whether you look at the utility or you look at the moral. Okay?
Mhm.
So if you look at moral, you probably don't want to. It's not like killing 4 people. It's more than killing 1 people. If you look at moral, kill anybody. It's
Right.
killing, right?
Yeah.
But if you more focus on utility, maybe you start to count. Right? So, but it's like
But
I
then-
said, there's no correct answer.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you look at, well, is the one person, who are they? Are they a valuable member of society?
Then,
Are the 4 people,
Exactly,
like
that's very
not
much
good people? Things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's very much how our political landscape is structured.
Yeah.
So we have we have conservatives who more focus on utility versus
Sure.
you know,
Without getting into politics, because I don't,
Yeah.
I don't want this, I don't want that to be part of this.
Yeah.
But do you foresee politics either helping or hindering the
The
progression
politics?
of this right now?
Oh
Again, I
my
don't want to
God.
get into politics, but do you
My God.
think that? Because I know, like you mentioned Obama earlier, and I know he was a huge proponent of science and growth and things like that. So I don't know if you think that
Are you talking about politics in general or the current political environment that we're in now?
the current political environment, do you see that anything's being hindered, or do you see that research is still progressing as normal?
Well, in the area I'm working on, so I don't see too much hindrance from the government in terms of providing funding and this. And
That's
this
good.
and that. Yeah,
That's
so,
very good.
Yeah, so these are.
No, like I said, we can scratch that.
You
But
know, well, so obviously science, you know, it's science.
Sure.
Of course. Let me put it this way: the government, so the policies that government puts out definitely will change the course of science for sure. You know,
Yeah.
So,
well, let me ask you this to make it a little bit easier, hopefully. As far as like big companies, big corporations, you know, like Samsung, Huawei in China, Apple here in the States, is there a company or companies that are definitely focusing more on that kind of
yeah,
science?
everybody.
Okay.
AI is the big thing that everybody's focusing on.
Okay. So it's not just one or the other. It's everybody's just, and that's good then, right? Because if everybody's looking at it, progress goes faster.
Oh,
or-
definitely.
Okay.
One of the reasons why this machine learning AI, so AI actually is an age-old research topic. The reason why we suddenly hear AI everywhere is really because of the advancement of the deep learning in the past 5 years. It's very quick. Okay, so the driving force behind deep learning, the fast growing of deep learning, are companies. Okay, so our companies, Google, Facebook, all big companies, they put in tons of money. So they are very much the leaders of this. So this is rarely seen because mostly the science advancements are generated from universities. Okay, but this is one of the reasons why industry actually taking a lead now is because they see the value.
Mm-hmm.
They see, they build Siri, they build Alexa. They see the value of this deep learning model being translated into applications right away. So yes, so everybody at all these big companies. So you definitely heard about this, the Go, the AlphaGo.
I heard about it.
Yeah, so this,
Highly fascinating.
Yeah, so Google built this, it's an artificial intelligence chess play. It's a Go. It's ancient Chinese.
Oh yes,
chess.
yeah. Okay.
Black and white.
Black, yeah.
It's it has, I won't say infinite number of moves, but it's a
But
really
that's
huge
one that's
possible.
that's making moves that nobody would ever think to make, right? Is that
Yeah, because the possibility of the moves are huge. Okay?
right?
So every move can generate different consequences, right? So that makes a machine, right? Building a machine to play Go really complicated. Okay, so there has been attempts before,
Mm-hmm.
but the ability is nowhere near human until Google takes on using deep learning and to build this AlphaGo, right? So and competed with
The world champion.
world champions, beat world champions. Just
Like it wasn't
flat.
even like a competition. They won the first 3 games out of 5.
So and then repeat this many times with different world champions. They won convincingly. So now AlphaGo doesn't play with human anymore because he knows human. So initially AlphaGo learned from human. So it takes us all this past plays, look at the moves and so on and so forth, and record it, memories, learn it, and but now AlphaGo doesn't learn from human anymore because we know that no human can really
So
provide.
does it play against itself then?
Very good. Yes, exactly. So this is one of the science paper published this year. So Google actually built 2 AlphaGos. They play with each other. They learn from each other.
Wow.
That's insane.
And see, that brings up kind of the ethics question again, because if a computer gets to the point where it will always best a human, does it begin to see humans as inferior?
No. So like I said, machine is only good at learning at this stage.
Right.
So there's no way near human. So even though it is really a great triumph of. Machine,
right. No,
in this,
absolutely.
but still, it's we're just building a machine to learn all possible moves. That's it. Okay. So it has nothing. It has no ability to create new things. Okay. So I don't worry about that.
Okay.
So just because of this, and then we say human is way superior than.
I'm going to take that back to my husband because he's constantly paranoid about AI taking over.
Well, and I think part of that is Hollywood. Hollywood is definitely putting in our heads that the robots will rise and crush humanity, and I don't think we're anywhere near that. Probably for hundreds of years, if ever.
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
So still, we human are much more sophisticated, and we don't understand ourselves yet. So
that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Machine. So we're much more smarter than we think. Okay, we have huge potentials. So we need to understand ourselves first. So because literally, there are many things we don't understand. Why we have such a big political divide? It's all human.
Yeah.
Why? I don't understand. Right. So.
Well, and like what the reason I brought up earlier is my dad had ALS, and so it's like we can't even figure out why certain motor neuron diseases kill us and what we can do to stop it. So yeah, no, I agree. Where I do think our potential, even up to this point in history, is untapped. I have a 4 and a 7-year-old, and I talk with my 7-year-old, and I'm like, well, anything's possible. We just haven't gotten there yet. And she looks at me like, what? And so it's just
Yeah, but the really now how science advances is really so we can leave ethic on the side, but it's just how this technology advances just unbelievable. It's really mind-boggling. It's hard for me to really wrap around my mind to wrap around the things that's being really generated, built, created. Okay, so. Well, this AI actually on the biology side, that's also extremely exciting. Extremely. Well, one of the things is curing cancer. It's one thing that's advanced so much. So there are really big breakthroughs now. So another thing is synthetic biology. I'm not sure. Probably it's less in the news, but actually it's another very fascinating area. So. It's basically what the name says. Synthetic biology is really synthesize new organisms. It's reality. It is reality.
Wait, what? Repeat that. It's synthesizing new organisms.
New cells, new type of cells.
So you're talking about like you could grow an organ, maybe like new kidneys, new lungs.
But we're not completely there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's getting to that.
So at the base of that, is that synthesizing like DNA to make organisms?
New DNA. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. New living form DNA. So it's not like a random DNA. It can generate new proteins.
I mean, again, I watched a lot of movies growing up, so science fiction. Could that lead to cloning then?
Oh yeah, yes. Cloning is
we're already cloning.
Yeah.
I know we're cloning. We cloned a sheep, but I'm talking about like a human body, like.
That's ethics.
But that's a very sensitive area of research because literally we have to talk about ethics.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to clone a monster.
Well, yeah,
Frankenstein.
Bring back the woolly mammoth or something.
Yeah, but research is already there. So, and then you don't want this technology to be on the hand of terrorists, right? So,
that's
the
true.
Science is there. So
I mean, we could.
It doesn't matter whether you trust it or believe it or not. The science is already there. So, actually, one of the projects NASA takes on is. So we're going to Mars. We try to find new life or try to find signs of life, right? So how do we know, right? So one of the projects that NASA is taking on is using the synthetic biology. Okay, so as we talk about, it's just basically the outcome of these genetic codes, right? So it's very much digital. So if we know the code, potentially, right, we can generate a human, right? So now we are there. Okay, so. One of the project that NASA takes on is that how do we know whether there's a human? You take a sample in Mars, okay, and you can. So now we have the so-called sequencing machine that can sequence the DNAs. You can take a sample. If you see any signs of DNA or so, you can sequence it. So once you sequence, it's just digits. It's just a sequence of ATCGs. You pass this code back to Earth. And we use synthetic biology to synthesize that organism.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's the project that NASA is taking. It's going on.
So and we'll get to Mars eventually. If there's traces of DNA found on Mars, if it does exist there, and it's sent back to Earth, potentially we could grow some kind of Martian life. On Earth.
On Earth. That's
crazy.
Yeah.
That's what NASA is working on.
That is wild. Wow. Okay.
Are these machines that synthesize DNA like expensive and hard to get a hold of? Because I assume like if you have that type of technique or technology in the wrong hands, they could be synthesizing the wrong things.
Yeah. But right now it's very much in the lab, but that technology is being published. So it's not like we can create anything yet. We only create a specific thing right now. But that technology,
but the potential is there.
Yeah, but it's already proven. It's just what you want to build.
Yeah. So we had a group of students, 4th and 5th graders, in here earlier today, and they were checking out the machine lab upstairs. And on the way out, I showed them the 3D printer, and they're like, "Can you build anything?" And I said, "If you can design it, you can print it, and it's kind of the same thing. If we can map it."
3D printer is another fascinating, area.
Yeah.
So we print this using this materials to print things, right? There are also areas that,
like organic material printing.
Yeah, organic material printing food, for example, printing meat. Yeah. So.
Wow.
So imagine, right? In the future, when you buy something, you go online, say, okay, I want to buy 5 pounds of pork, and it's just printed out from.
It's kind of like
machine.
Star Trek. The
So,
what is it? The replicator or whatever in Star Trek. Where
Yeah.
they ask for a certain dish and it just appears. I didn't realize they were printing.
synthetic meat, it's already there. It's reported this year. I think 2 months ago.
Wow.
It's done by one of the
Meat?
labs.
Oh,
Synthetic
wow.
meat. Yeah.
So does that? I think we may have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but are we printing organs? And are we there yet? Like humans, because that's just material, right? And if you have the mapping of
Yes,
it, you can technically print it.
Theoretically, yes, we can, but I don't think we can reliably do that yet. Yeah.
I'd be curious because I know like the liver can repair itself. So I wonder if it could take, the DNA of the liver and use that, and the lung even too. I've been told that if you're a smoker after a certain, it's like 30 years, but the lung will heal itself as if you never smoked.
Yeah.
So it's self-regenerating kind of thing. So that is wild. Well, hey, I appreciate it. I know it's getting late in the day, so this has been fascinating. I really thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell over the podcast, but I've taken a lot of notes because I'm just so fascinated by this field.
Oh, I know, and it's great. And you were just the last minute came on too, which is fantastic. Thank you for doing this.
It's a very good experience for me too.
Yeah,
So,
cool. So
I
we'll
hope I hope I can inspire more people to work on these areas.
I don't see how you can't. So we'd love to have you back on just whenever your schedule
Sure.
allows.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. No, this has been
great.
This has been
We should
wonderful.
do more.
So
Yeah.
thank you again, Dr. Yufei Huang here in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at UTSA. If you're ever interested in studying machine learning or AI, come register and take his classes. So
So come and register classes at ECE department.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.